for anyone who wants to be a jackass and say that people don't like this because there's not enough bang action and it's not MCU familiar, there's a reason people are comparing it to Dune, because both movies are sci-fi epic fantasies with a lot more on its mind than just being a blockbuster film. There's a big ensemble cast. No one is a superhero movie while the other one has supernatural qualities. A
lot of sci-fi elements on both.
They're not one-to-one comparison, but I would way more compare those two versus this and Thor the Dark World. And my point being is that obviously critics and audiences can get on board with deep, complex sci-fi fantasy sweeping epics. Mm-hmm. Now it's really about, will they get on board with this one? Well. I've been waiting to talk about this once an official critics consensus is established here on the website Rotten Tomatoes for Eternals, because I posted something about it on the community page and we've talked a little bit about it off camera already, but now we have a consensus. This can go up and down because there's only 107 reviews factoring in for today. What's today's date? 29th?
29th.
Today's the 29th, 10:50 a.m. There's 107 reviews, and Shang-Chi has like somewhere between 300 to 400 reviews.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea of how many more reviews are going to be coming in for this movie, okay? But right now it's sitting at the MCU's lowest critical score.
Yes.
The lowest the MCU has ever had. Still fresh, but it's
for
at
now
62%, and it seems like it could potentially be the first one to hit the rotten mark. And I want to state this right up front. When it comes to the superhero movies, especially, or any blockbuster film, really, I always believe in an audience score or a cinema score. I think the audience's opinion matters way more than a critic's score. You might have seen already where John and I did a video where we just got out of the Eternals premiere, gave our quick thoughts, and we felt quite differently about it. One really liked it, the other was like, it's okay, I guess. And then I ended up doing a deep dive non-spoiler talk, and it's very different than a lot of other people's non-spoiler talk. That's one thing I'll credit the video for. Coy and I, we debated extensively about it, and I went way more into depth about the things that I did like and the things that I didn't like, or that I was sort of iffy on, to put it lightly. The thing I was most wrong about was I didn't expect it to be this divisive with critics. I was very much wrong about that. When we talked with people, even Coy was saying like it'll probably be in the 70 to 80s, and that was like everyone's who I was speaking with of where they thought it would land critically. Because especially when you like go on the social media reactions, which are usually touting the film up when you come out of a premiere screening, like most people were so positive. Even people who were doing videos on it, most people were so positive. I was certain that I would be like way more in the minority about my opinion on it, and I don't dislike it to the degree that a lot, like, I would still ultimately recommend the movie. I'm just not, enthusiastic about it, to say the least. But John, how are you reacting as someone who really liked this movie? How are you reacting to the critical score so far?
It's been a fun roller coaster to watch thus far, and the biggest thing to me is that everybody's making this comparison of, it's even worse than Thor the Dark World. It's the lowest MCU tomato meter score. And there's a lot of to-do that's made out of the tomato meter. There's a lot of debate about what it's for and how to use it and what is the legitimacy. I think it's interesting. I'm mostly curious to see what this is going to do to the turnout of audiences to see the movie and the ultimate audience reception, because you had these initial thoughts of, this is going to be this amazing thing, Oscar-worthy, says Kevin Feige, and now you're seeing these tomato meter scores, and I mean, when you put out your opinion, people were pretty quick to jump on you and be like, no, it can't be. And so now that the movie is actually starting to get out to more and more and more people,
I am validated.
Yeah, I was going to say, how's it feel? How's it feel to be wrong about the little thing, but right about your opinion, man?
I'm still right about the fact that majority are ultimately recommending it.
Yeah, I'm curious about how people are going to take this, because to me, this is an excellent example of the nuance that the tomato meter can represent, whereas like Thor the Dark World, and I'm not the first person to point this out even, but Thor the Dark World, if you cruise all those capsule reviews, a lot of people's opinion is like, it's kind of lackluster, it's fine. Whereas if you cruise the Eternals reviews, there's a whole lot of praise then tempered with, this is beautiful, the cast is great, it's got all this scope and sweeping ambition. However, it's a little emotionally detached and it's a little hampered by its plotting and stuff like that. And so I feel as though the tomato score ultimately, wherever it lands, is going to be a mite deceptive, maybe, in terms of the way people like to go, that's the how good or not percentage the movie is. And I mean, I could see this now dropping into like the high 50s or something like that, or maybe rising closer to the 70s. And that's the big thing I'm curious about, is that, we have at least on the, critical tomato meter, 200 or more reviews still set to drop in through the next few weeks. And that's the big thing I am quite curious about, along with how everyone at Marvel must be feeling, because, they've had big confidence in this movie, but it's got to have been a different reception than they were expecting and certainly hoping for.
Yeah, because I went on the community page and I was stating, I'm really looking forward to the debate around this film. That's a big reason why I encourage everyone to go see it. Just make up your own mind. A lot of people have the habit of predetermining. You can look at a trailer and go, I don't think I'm going to like it. I think I will like it. But don't get married to that predetermined opinion. Always go in with an open mind and you might be surprised. If anything, having lower expectations with this might actually help you enjoy the movie. Absolutely. Instead of going, let me see if I can validate all my negativity towards it. That would never be my goal, even if I'm not fully recommending a film. So I am looking forward to the debate. I'm not looking forward to comments. I'm not looking forward to the vitriol. I'm not looking forward to the bile and the nastiness. Mm-hmm. I know alone just putting up this video with the title, the subject, that a lot of people won't even listen to the video. They'll downvote. They'll leave a mean comment just because that's what people do. Yeah. Look at our Lightyear opening bit.
Gonna have a big red light for any time sarcasm is in the room.
And we're not even being sarcastic in this video. We're being sincere. Yeah. But people will judge it just based off, like I said, the title and the subject. And also, I think a contributing factor will be the fact that people associate my opinion with Eternals as a strong dislike, even though I don't believe the case is a strong dislike. I think I'm just like,
well, yeah, it seemed like part of what took you aback was that you didn't have as strong of any feeling.
Yeah, and I've already done enough talking about my feelings and opinion on it. I do want this movie to increase in the critical score and the audience score simply due to the fact that I do believe the MCU, while a lot of their films often have a familiar structure. See, there's like story and then there's plot. And I honestly don't think this movie is completely void of MCU structure. I think there's a lot about it. I'm like, no, it's a kind of a similar structure to a lot of things, but the plotting, the scene placements and the way the scenes are executed overall, that's why you hear a lot of people saying the words dense. I know it's an annoying word now, and the word's dense, and why it's different. I think the MCU is more diverse than it's given credit for, personally. This is definitely more different, and the way they decide to tell their superhero ensemble tale is so differently executed than you might initially think when hearing of this idea. And that's a big part of why I'm like, no, I want this to go up, because I want the people at Marvel to feel encouraged to keep taking chances to try different things instead of doing more Black Widows. That because that's the main reason I would recommend this over Black Widow, even though I don't like that movie. I don't like Black Widow. I think this is better simply due to the strength of its ambitions and what it was ultimately setting out to do. So that's just kind of where I land with it. Admittedly, there was a part of me that was a little bit relieved, because it sucks when you're like, oh, this movie has a 99% and I am the 1% who doesn't like it. There's a part of it.
I am the minority.
Yeah. It can suck when I'm always going to be honest, but that can be a shitty feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we see this, I'm like, oh, thank God, I'm not alone. However, I'm not like, please suffer.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that they do see the divisiveness perhaps as a strength, because division among audiences can be a good thing in that it gets people debating, and it also shows that, you took a chance. So I do hope that this does not discourage them at all. And it bums me out to see so many headlines with just that one sentiment of, Eternals is the lowest rated, or lower than Thor the Dark World. Because at first glance, that implies something a lot more simple and a lot less fair, I think, to the overall scope of what the movie's trying to do.
Well, I think with Thor the Dark World, Thor the Dark World is extremely MCU familiar, just not executed well.
Yes.
This is nowhere near as MCU familiar.
Yeah.
And it's really about how did you handle the different execution. It's like, this is like the critic score is on par with Venom. Like, let there be carnage, but you wouldn't watch the movies and go, they're pretty similar.
They're on an equal level of quality.
No, if anything, one thing I'm finding is people are kind of comparing this movie more to Dune.
Absolutely.
And Dune has a reasonably high audience, pretty high audience score, and a pretty high critic score. And that movie is, I think, exceptionally more heady and
more dense.
Way more dense. Much more difficult to, I don't want to say difficult, but you definitely got to focus more to understand the details and even just the plot.
Yeah.
You got to focus up way more. So for anyone who wants to be a jackass and say that people don't like this because there's not enough bang bang action and it's not MCU familiar, there's a reason people are comparing it to Dune, because both movies are sci-fi epic fantasies with a lot more on its mind than just being a blockbuster film. There's a big ensemble cast. No, one is a superhero movie while the other one has supernatural qualities. A
lot of sci-fi elements on both.
With Timothée Chalamet's character, there's a bit of a superhero-esque nature to it. They're not one-to-one comparison, but I would way more compare those two versus this and Thor the Dark World.
Yeah.
And my point being is that obviously critics and audiences can get on board with deep, complex sci-fi fantasy sweeping epics. Now it's really about, will they get on board with this one?
Absolutely. That's the question.
I think I ended that great.
You did.
That's probably the smartest
so
I've
good.
ever sounded.
Dude, we're going to play this video backwards so you can start on your best point.
Anyway, where do you guys think this will ultimately end up being? Do you think it'll end up being rotten? Do you think this is going to affect the box office? Do you think the audience score will be higher than the critic score? It usually is, but sometimes it's not. Leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe, click that bell, hit that like button. Leave the burp. We'll catch you guys soon.